this woman, I've had about enough of her. She wants to be like a member of the squad. She thinks of herself like an AOC. She talks like, she's from the hood. Meanwhile, she grew up in a nice family. She didn't talk like this 3 years ago. 3 years ago, she sounded like you and I sound in this conversation. Like, I'm really excited to be going to Congress. I can't wait to get started on my new job. And now she's like, we need to smack him in the head. Like, what do you, we have videotape. Why are you talking like that? No one believes this bull. And now she's graduated to acting like a thug. So congratulations. Your term in the U.S. Congress is going really well. Swimming.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett continues to be criticized as she doubles down on her insults toward people with disabilities. A frontrunner gunning for her seat in Congress has just come into play. President Donald Trump signs an executive order that will ensure that the power of the people remains with the people, and Democrats lose it after President Trump's polling numbers. Guys, we have a jam-packed episode today, starting with the controversial Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. So Crockett was recently asked if she owed disabled people an apology. Now, this is after she made fun of Governor Greg Abbott by calling him Governor Hot Wheels. Crockett, on her end, feels as if an apology is not necessary.
Put out a statement regarding that.
You didn't apologize.
I put out a statement.
Why would I apologize?
When I put out a statement, my statement was clear.
But you didn't
My statement
apologize
was
for calling him Governor Hot Wheels when he gets around in a wheelchair.
I don't know how many
that's
times
offensive.
I don't understand
Who have a disability.
You need me to repeat this to you.
Right, but why won't you apologize?
I put out a statement.
They did not have an apology.
So read my statement.
I did read it. It did not have an apology.
Okay. Well, I'm done.
You don't feel bad about making fun of someone who is in a wheelchair?
What's not surprising is that Republicans aren't happy with Crockett, although it is shocking to hear that some Democrats are also not very fond of Crockett. So Jasmine Crockett represents the far left, and many people see her as a radical who doesn't really care what she says. Now, the bad news is that somebody's already waiting at the sideline to unseat her come 2026. His name is Sheldon Daniels, and it looks like his chances keep getting better, especially with the Congresswoman repeatedly making mistakes. Watch.
A lot to talk about. What you'd like to see done, how you would like to participate in the legislative process, and so much more. But let's talk, if we can, about Congresswoman Crockett and that district specifically. It's not a shock of how she speaks, the inflammatory rhetoric that continues to come out of this woman's mouth, and it goes on. It's not the first time. But this comment about Governor Hot Wheels, can you talk about these remarks against Governor Abbott?
This is what happens when a politician has no real accomplishments like Jasmine Crockett. She resorts to childish insults instead of doing her job. Her calling Governor Abbott Hot Wheels, it's not just disrespectful, it's disgusting. This is the governor of Texas. This is a man who has dedicated his career to public service, and her idea of leadership is making fun of his disability. And like you said, this isn't the first time that she's embarrassed our district. It's a pattern. She gets on TV, she runs her mouth, and then she does absolutely nothing for the people of TX30. She's more focused on being a viral sensation on social media than delivering results. But voters are watching, and Texas deserves better.
And she's not sorry, really, for those remarks. At least she won't come out and straight up apologize. She shared this on X to attempt to clarify the Hot Wheels remark, saying, I wasn't thinking about the governor's condition. I was thinking about the planes, trains, and automobiles he used to transfer migrants into communities led by black mayors. Your thoughts about her justification for the comment?
That's so completely untrue, because we actually discovered an earlier tweet, I want to say from a year or two ago, where she made a similar joke in the same vein, making fun of Governor Abbott and his condition. I need to pull the tweet, but if you go to my timeline on X, you will be able to see it. I reposted it.
Now, I do have the tweet that he's talking about right here. It's an old tweet Crockett posted from 2022 where she's obviously alluding to Governor Greg Abbott's condition. It says here, the new nickname I have for @Beto O'Rourke is the king of clapbacks. Beto is rolling all around the state. Where is Abbott rolling to? So she's been on Abbott for years now. It's like the Texas governor is living in her mind rent-free. But to be fair, let's talk about that statement for a moment. Her reason for saying Governor Hot Wheels is a supposed reference to Governor Abbott using using buses, trains, and planes to transfer illegal immigrants to different states. Something that we see Daniels refute since she's obviously targeted the governor's condition from years ago until today. And so Daniels plans to unseat Crockett by 2026, something that he might do since a simple post from him on X asking for support got almost 1 million views in just a couple of days. So I'm kind of thinking this guy actually has a shot since he's already shown more class in one interview than Jasmine Crockett has in her entire political career. Now, switching gears here just for a moment, let's talk about the elections. President Donald Trump wants the power to remain with the citizens of this country. Watch.
This could be profoundly important ahead of the 2026 midterm elections, which is really the next opportunity for Democrats to get back into power in part of Washington, in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. According to critics of this executive order, it is an overreach by the president into the work of local and state governments. The execution of elections is a local matter with very little federal oversight. What the executive order calls for, Lindsay, is a federal requirement for proof of citizenship by anybody who votes in a federal election. It also could call for the decertification or recertification of those voting booths in communities nationwide, a Herculean undertaking before the next election. It also would prohibit states and communities from accepting and counting ballots that arrive after Election Day itself, even if they were sent on time and even if local laws allow for that. This is on a beeline to the court system, Lindsay, for legal challenges.
And Scott, you have sources that you've talked to. How likely is it this will stand up in court?
It seems unlikely all of this is going to be accepted by all courts. In fact, the lawsuits aren't just inevitable. They could be imminent. Take a look at the comment from the Secretary of State in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, who says that the department is reviewing the action, but then makes the argument that in addition to the department being committed to executing appropriate federal laws and elections, that this appears to be an overreach by the Trump administration, that this is a extension beyond what federal legislation and what federal laws allow.
What is it about blue states and their refusal to honor citizens during elections? And then, of course, there's the Crossfire hurricane documents. Now, I'm not sure if he misspoke, but it sounds as if the president is saying that there are documents to prove his win in 2020.
Right. The law firms are being gone after very much, and they virtually admit that they cheated. We have them in a very strong position, but there's been a lot of cheating going on.
One of the law firms
people have never seen anything like it, and we have to stop it.
One of the law firms that you've been going after, Perkins Coie, which was responsible for contracting a guy called Christopher Steele to draw up a huge document of lies about you that led to all sorts of Trump-Russia collusion allegations for years. You announced yesterday that you also are declassifying all of the documents from the Trump-Russia collusion hoax from what they call Crossfire Hurricane in the FBI. What do you think people are going to learn from those documents?
I think they're going to learn how corrupt the election was. It was a very corrupt election. You're talking about the second election, I assume. That was an election that I won. I won by a lot. And you're going to find that out. The documents are there. The numbers are there. We won that by a lot. Mm-hmm. We won 3 elections, and we did very well in the second one. Now, the third one, we blew it away. The third one, we said, too big to rig. And it was too big to rig. But that second election, it was the COVID nightmare, and a lot of that had to play. But that was a rigged election, totally rigged.
Now, obviously, there is something that Democrats disagree with. In their minds, President Trump is extremely unpopular. But that narrative is shut down by CNN. Even they have to admit that the president has never been this popular.
What we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number 1, and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024. What are we talking about? His net favorable rating right now comes in at -4 points. Compare that to where he was when he won in November of 2024, when he was at -7 points, or March of 2017, when he was at -10 points. So when you compare Trump against himself, he's actually closer to the apex than he is to the bottom of the trough.
Harry Enton is a numbers guy, so he just can't help but provide us with the facts here. President Trump is delivering on his numerous campaign promises, and the American people appreciate a man of his word. Which brings me to Social Security. Now, I covered this in a recent live stream that I urge you to watch. It's expected that big changes are coming, which could provide people with thousands of dollars in extra cash. Make sure you guys check that out. As always, appreciate your time. Thanks for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you next time.